All right, good morning. It is November 4th, Tuesday, November 4th, 2025, and we're going to do our pre-market prep today. All right, let's start with what happened yesterday. So this is the video. I always like to show in the video form. It's the permanent record, guys. There's no fudging it. So this is what we talked about yesterday with ES. Let me bring up my little tools here. Hang on. Screen marker. Okay. Just move some things around on my screens so I can work a little bit better. Okay. So we talked about this yesterday. We talked about how, the E-mini S&P, we had this downside move overnight, and then we were kind of up, but we were in this range contraction. I don't know if I can, let me see if I can show an image of the range contraction. All right, let's see. All right, so we were in a big range contraction, and a range contraction means that the ADR is completely inside the prior RDR range. And I'm talking about the IDR levels, which are these dotted lines. Okay, so the solid high and solid lows, the DR level, the dotted high and the dotted low, or the IDR level, and then this dotted one here in between is the midline. Okay. So I use all these levels. So this was a range contraction. And what I talked about was that, one is the data can always be a little bit tricky when you're dealing with a range contraction. Two, sometimes you get a really powerful move out, or you get a rotational effect. Okay. Where it wants to either do something like this, or it's going to rotate around and maybe drop and maybe want to go down to the bottom, or maybe get caught right here at the midline. Okay, so those are kind of the typical behaviors for that. I talked about all of this in the video. We talked about the data. So this is the part of the video where I'm building out the data. Without looking at one characteristic, it looked like there would be an upside X plus move on the day. But just to call your attention to, I think I put it right here in the video. 1 second. I'm trying to get to that spot. Okay. Notice that what we have here is we have this break at 8:30. The 8:30 candle was actually inside of the IDR DR range at 8:30. And so that actually, believe it or not, that one little thing, this one little detail changes the data entirely. So whereas before we were looking at something that looked like upside X plus here, just because we have this, we were now looking at a range expansion. And if you look at if you watch the price action, he would never have believed that we would form a range expansion. Like, it just didn't look like it was gonna go that way. This is what that data looks like. So the key thing here is this right here. Our open was inside of the DR IDR. And that switched us over to a 50% probability of having a range expansion day. Okay, so what that had me doing is kind of looking at both. Like, was this just a little anomaly? Was it strong enough to really be a kind of a signal for range expansion, or was it something that that was legit and we're going to end up getting this range expansion day? Okay, so that was kind of the setup for S&P 500, which is either we're going to get this kind of move, up, get this nice range expansion or this nice upside X plus, or we would come down here and fail and then start coming back down. So those were the options. That was yesterday. So how did we do? We did exactly that. So actually, let me put on the old range contraction. We actually have another range contraction today. So we did this. So we bounced out right here, right? Popped out, came back in, never came back and tested, unfortunately. That kind of sucked. And then it just took off all the way down, and then really just stalled the rest of the day and really didn't do anything at all. Which, sometimes that happens. And eventually we took off. Eventually we made it down to here. Remember, I think one thing I said is that a lot of times when we fail on one side, we want to test the other side. We eventually did. We did it way out here. Took a while, took until the Asian session, but we did end up doing that, which was awesome. Just want to check one more thing really quick in my data. Just want to see something really quick here. Sorry guys, hang on. Just want to see if there's something else I want to point out here. Okay, yeah, I do actually. So here's something else that yeah, so here's some of the machine learning stuff that I do with this data. This is kind of interesting. Is what's based on this structure that we end up building out here, what's the probability that we're going to either get a new high during the regular trading hour session, a new high, a new low, or where we'll end up with both a high and low. And today we ended up with this machine learning algorithm predicting, at the time, this was like 7:30 in the morning, 8:30 Eastern time, right? We predicted that we would actually very likely get both a high and a low during the RDR session. And so again, accuracy, okay? And it's measured from the start of the ADR session. So what we needed to do was we needed to kind of like span this box right here. And so even at this point in time, you have too many boxes here, right, guys? Let me do this. Okay, so even at this point in time, right here, we knew that there's a high probability that this would get taken out and this would get taken out, because that's what our machine learning algorithm told us. So this is great stuff. I love this stuff. This data is fantastic. I love using it for context. It's really great. I did have some short signals through here yesterday, by the way, and it was moving so fast, it just didn't trigger me in, unfortunately. So I think I had 3 trade setups that occurred on this whole move down, and I didn't get pulled into a single one, which really sucked. It just didn't hit my entry criteria, but that's okay. All right, so let's talk about today. So let's go through and talk about today. Again, we have range contraction. This is kind of an easy day because we have what's called an unbroken downside model. And unbroken means we have not broken the prior midline. Okay, so when we close the ADR session like this, probably can't even see that. When we close the ADR session like this, if this midline breaks, then we have a broken pattern. Okay, when this ODR session ends, we have if this midline breaks, then it's broken. But until this breaks, after this session closes, we have an unbroken downside. So by and large, I can tell you, like the dominant, in the data, it's going to say downside X plus. But again, what we need to watch is we need to watch what happens with this level right here. Okay, let me use this one instead. So this level and the midline. Okay, because if we start coming back up into here, right, then it really changes and affects things. Okay, we still can probably get something like this though. Okay, if we come back up into here, then it's a little bit more tricky. Okay, so I can already tell you that that's what it looks like. I've seen enough of the data. So let's jump over into this. Okay, let me reset everything. Let's go to ES. What's today? Tuesday. We had downside X plus. We are in a contraction. Short, true. And we're already, this is interesting because I think this has to do with the range contraction. We're already dominant on range expansion. So we haven't even done anything to affect the normal data changes. This is a surprise to me, by the way, guys. I would have expected it to be really downside X plus, but we haven't even done anything with this, and it's already showing that we're kind of leaning toward range expansion already today. Okay, so if we do this, then that's going to be even bigger. So really big possibility of getting this range expansion today. And I think it has to do, this is what I was saying about the, range contraction really can change the data. Actually, let me show you what that looks like. So let's do this for a second. Let's take this off. Let's take this off. And you can see when we don't have a range contraction day, we're really heavily downside X plus, especially if I did this. Now we're 51%. And if I did this, we're still, we're range expansion, but not as much. But add this contraction day, and we're already pretty big. And it has to do with Tuesday too, apparently. This is what I have to do, guys. I got to go through and I got to look all the scenarios. Does Tuesday have an effect? Yes. Tuesday has a big effect. Okay, for whatever reason, Tuesdays it plays more heavily on range expansion. I don't have a lot of records here. If I take Tuesday off, now I'm kind of equal between range expansion and downside. Okay, so that's Tuesday on with range contraction. Take this off, I've got a few more records. So I'm looking at range expansion. Okay, so that's my ideas and probabilities here is that we've got range expansion. Okay, so range expansion is going to look like this, right? And then we also have downside, which is going to look something like this. Okay, but I generally do expect this to kind of pop back up at some point, because if we're going to do downside, then we've got to make a move that looks, something like this. Boom. And then these are bigger levels for me. So we're kind of close to these. I kind of expect something, I don't know. I'm not even going to say it. I try to take off my expectations when I do this stuff because I don't want to have too many expectations. Okay. All right. So let's take a look at NQ just really quick. What is NQ showing us? All right. Same thing, no range contraction overnight. So we just reset this, NQ, downside X plus. We'll do Tuesday, short, true. All right, we're already at, again, even. I think something has to do with Tuesdays. It has to be something with Tuesdays. If I did Wednesday, any day but Tuesday. Yeah, Tuesdays. Tuesdays are an important day. Okay. No range expansion, and we're still 50-50 between range expansion and downside X plus. Okay, so this is going to be an interesting one. If I do that, we open below, so that gives me a little bit more weight on downside X plus. So we'll see. Again, this is about the same. If we run our scenario here, if we breach, now we're big time. If we breach this IDR level, we're big time range expansion. That's what we're looking at. All right, so that's kind of my day. It's what I'm looking at. I'm going to be looking for probably some sort of range expansion. This was a really big move down. I have to be able to trade, recognizing that we might get this range expansion move back up. That doesn't mean it keeps going up, right? It could very well be something that, forms this range expansion this way and then goes down. So we want to kind of look for these different possibilities, but are we going straight down? I don't think so. And I'm not necessarily going to plan for that necessarily. I think that we're going to have at least some movement inside the IDR. Okay. All right, guys, that's the pre-market prep for today. And let me just add to this. If we do go back up, this looks very much like a V reversal type of pattern. If we do go back up, it's very likely that we want to test up here, this range contraction high or low. So just keep that in mind. Like, this is a kind of an important level for today if we're going and moving up. If we're moving down, then it's these kind of bigger, these are my monthly levels. So, all right, guys, have an awesome day and have a great